Welcome to Journey Church. Whether you are sitting here in the sanctuary with us or sitting at home looking online, I know that you will have an experience of the holy and you'll be blessed. This week, we're looking at Luke's version of Jesus' parable, the Prodigal Son. You'll find it in Luke chapter 15. I'm calling this God's Trying to Tell Us Something. In the movie The Color Purple, Shug Avery returns to her hometown, a broken down, alcoholic blues and jazz singer. Having left her roots as a gospel singer in the church years ago to make it big in the music industry, then only to fall from grace, it is a struggle for her to enter the doors of the church again. Even after drying out and pulling her life back together, it's hard to enter that sanctuary again, especially since her father is the pastor of the church and turned his back on her. God's trying to tell you something, if you please. The story of the prodigal son is about as familiar as any of the parables of Jesus. Perhaps because we can so identify with the younger son who, for reasons known to many of us, because we've been there, essentially said, I can't stand my life at home anymore. Give me the inheritance you owe me, and I'll go have a real life. No more of this dull existence for me. Oh, and did he ever give what he thought was real life a try? Party time, all the day and night, until every resource he had was spent, until every coin of his inheritance was gone. That was when the real life began for him. The wayward son had to get a job. Unfortunately, he didn't have a clue what he was capable of, and no one really trusted him, so the only job he could get was cleaning out pig pens. Now that's noble work. I know because I did it myself, both on the family farm for a number of years and at the county fair. For 3 years in a row, I cleaned the barns out during and at the close of the Hardin County Fair to earn college money. It's noble work, but a little too odoriferous for the object of our discussion this morning to want to remain in the midst of it. So one day as the young man sat in the middle of the pig lot, all covered with muck, it dawned on the immoderate boy that there just might be more to life. He came to a rather remarkable conclusion. Life could be better. If only he hadn't said so many harsh things to his father. If only he hadn't been so sure that everything his father stood for was a waste of time. If only he hadn't asked for that inheritance that basically said his father was dead to him. The if-onlys can sure eat away at a person's soul and at a person's self-esteem. There's one if only the boy didn't ask, however. Notice in Luke's telling of the story, the boy doesn't say, if only I had more money, I could go back to the party. Truth is, he was no longer welcome with the in crowd. He was unreliable now in providing the party supplies. Instead of a pusher of pleasure, he was now a pig poop pusher. Truth is, he understood now how much he'd messed up, and he missed the presence of his father. So, alone and frustrated, depressed and worthless, the young man decided to go home. Recognizing that the thing to do was to apologize to his father, he began to practice just what he would say. Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men. One foot in front of the other, he began the journey home. Father, I have sinned. Step by agonizing step, he drew closer to his past. That was now his future. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. The boy tried to swallow his pride, but he really didn't have any pride left to swallow. All he could do was rasp out the words, Father, forgive me. Not everyone can take such painful steps. The pain and the isolation can seem far too overwhelming. The feeling of worthlessness can seem too oppressive. The guilt, the shame piled so high, and the self mired in it so deep, it seems impossible to ever be free of it. The conclusion that life can be better feels like it's come too late. But God's trying to tell you something. The first steps were taken, and before the son had made it all the way home, his father, who had been looking for him, saw him, and running as one possessed by love, intercepted him on the road. Looking like a fool running down the road with his robes held high and his sandals flopping, the father didn't even allow his son to finish his speech. As he threw his arms around the boy, the past was not only forgiven, it was forgotten. Cool story, huh? Don't you wish the Jesus response were always the response we would get after wounding someone's heart so deeply? Most of the time, the reaction's closer to what Shug Avery got from her father, the preacher, in the movie The Color Purple. When a wedge is driven between two people in a relationship, the more likely response is a cold shoulder, a turning of one's back, don't let the door hit you on the way out rebuttal. And it feels an awful lot like sitting alone in the middle of a pig lot wondering what happened to reality. God's trying to tell you something.
Sister, you've been on my mind. Oh, sister, we're through up a high. So, sister, I'm keeping my eye on you. I bet you think I don't know nothing.
All us been prodigal children at one time or another. And I tell you, children, it's possible for the Lord to drive you home. But he can drive you home to truth. And he can fix it for you if you trust him.
Shh, let's sing. God's trying to tell you something. Y'all sing, God's trying to tell you something. Sing, God's trying to tell you something.
Tell you something.
Say yeah.
Speak, Lord. Speak to me.
I was so blind. I was so lost until you spoke to me.
see, Daddy, sinners have soul too.
God's trying to tell us something. And here's the good news that I'm hearing. No matter what our history, whether our story is filled with celebration or racked with pain, God hears us. No matter what has occurred in our past, regardless of any denial that's taken place in our life, in spite of the fact that we are having a hard time accepting ourselves, God accepts us. No matter what intention we had in speaking words that hurt, God forgives us. No matter the ways we have listened to words that have hurt us, God loves us. God's trying to tell us something, searching for us, ready to run toward us with arms wide open. God's trying to tell us to come home and be made whole. Just a